Namaste to everyone. A very grand welcome to this weekend's Mahabharat. Now we enter into the weekend 8th of our Mahabharat initiative, and in that, as you all know, that this is the Indian history class number 7. So we have completed around 6 Indian history classes. If you are new to this or this Indian history series, I do first please recommend you to go to the previous classes once. This is because you have to understand the present class, this 8th class of Indian history series. I think you should have a strong foundation of those 6 classes. Then only you will be connected to the content and the story that we are going enjoying through this Indian history series. So just a small list of the classes that what we have discussed till today. If you see in the Indian history class, first class number 1, we have discussed about the origin of the universe and how stars, planets have formed. And in the second Indian history class, we have discussed about how life got created for the first time on the planet Earth. Very important point. And in the third Indian history class, we have discussed about how did Homo sapiens, the modern man, evolve from this different life creatures. And in the fourth Indian history class series, we have discussed that how the modern man who has evolved in the region of Africa, that is Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia regions, how that Homo sapiens species got branched off and out migrated of Africa and reached all other continents of the world. We have discussed that. And in the Indian history class number 5, we have discussed about the Paleolithic man. That means once the man stepped into the land mass of Indian subcontinent. In the class number 5, we have discussed that how that Paleolithic man was living and what were the conditions of that Paleolithic man and how he reacted to those conditions. And not only Paleolithic man, that is from 60,000 years ago from now to around 10,000 years ago from now. So that period we have discussed about Paleolithic man completely. And in the same class, at the latter end of the class, number 5, we have discussed about the Mesolithic man. Mesolithic man. So how the transformation at the global climate level happened and how they triggered the changes in the lifestyle, in the biological system, in the way the human being, the Paleolithic man was living. How a change happened in the Mesolithic period. We have studied in the class number 5. And in the Indian history class number 6, if you see that we have studied about how this Mesolithic change, which actually, the global ice age of Paleolithic period changed to the warmer conditions of Mesolithic period, and the changes which initiated in the Mesolithic period, for example, like warmer temperature, for example, like the change of the flora from being thick, dense forests to around grasslands, to about grasslands. And the moment grasslands have increased, different animal species which depended on the grasslands increased and other animal species got extincted. That means now the man of Mesolithic period has to depend upon what? To hunt which animals? Only those animals which are prevalent around him, and they are depending upon the grasslands. So this connection between the man, grasslands and the animals which are dependent on the grasslands, this triangular connection led to different revolutionary changes in the next period. What is that? In the class number 6, we have discussed about the Neolithic period, Neolithic man. So Neolithic man, what were the specific features we discussed? Agriculture. The moment grasslands increased, he started observing them and he started imitating the process of growing the grassland, that is wheat. The first crop to be, the first of all the crops that man was started growing was barley. So after that, wheat. That means the cereals, the grasslands, the grass crops, he used to grow in the starting periods of the Neolithic period. So agriculture was the unique feature of the Neolithic period. We have discussed that in the class number 6. And how that agriculture started. Once the agriculture started, pottery started because to store the grains. And agriculture demanded many hands of the human labor. That means the man for the first time started living in the communities. We have discussed in the class number 6. And the moment this starting of these groups has started, the social relations will be established between the human beings for the first time. Till then, he was an individualistic in nature. Till then, till the Neolithic period, he was only an individual animal, but he never habituated himself to be in a group. But for the first time, in the Neolithic period, on the demand of the agricultural practice, this Homo sapiens came together and started living together. That led to the village communities. Very important development, sir. Very important development in the Neolithic period. We have discussed that in the class number 6. And not only that, agriculture triggered a change in the pottery development. And lot of animals started domesticating, and that means that led to not only agriculture but also animal herding. So there were two different occupations under the umbrella of farming. So this practice of agriculture and animal herding, called as the pastoralism, has come up in the period of Neolithic man. We have discussed that. And at the end of the class number 6, we discussed how this Neolithic man who was living in the small communities, small village communities, having small social rules, very, very rudimentary social rules, and a very ancient form, the prehistoric form of agriculture who was practicing, changed himself into the Chalcolithic man. That means there was a very revolutionary change happened during this Neolithic, end of the Neolithic period. That was the discovery of metal. Yes or no? So we have discussed that at the end of the class number 6, that how this Chalcolithic period, the discovery of the metal, the first metal used by the man was copper. So how he was using the copper? He replaced all the important activities, for example, harvesting of the crop, by the metal tools. He was using utensils for cooking, the metal tools, metal vessels. He was using the ornaments which were made up of the copper metal. That means everything in their daily life was changed to metal. That means there was a starting of metal age, which was the second half of the prehistoric period, as I have said. So this we discussed in class number 6. And in the class number 7, that means the very the very earlier class to this, that was, we discussed about a great ancient prehistoric, not ancient even, but the prehistoric civilization that came up on the mortal remains of this Chalcolithic period. Yes or no? We have discussed about the Indus Valley civilization, which was considered as the glorious period of our Indian prehistory, which was flourished during the period between around 2600 BCE and to 1900 BCE. So this period, 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE, that we considered as the period of mature Harappan period, mature Harappan civilization period, or the mature Indus Valley civilization period. So if you have a very closer look of what we discussed in the last class, before going to the present class, we discussed the general outline of what were the conditions which led to the development of a new civilization, a very glorious civilization like Indus Valley civilization, Harappan civilization, Sindhu Saraswati civilization. So how for the first time this discovery of large mounds of the bricks, large mounds of the buildings inside the soil, when the Britishers were excavating the soil for the construction of the railway lines. We have discussed during the 1870s, when in the Punjab province, the present day Pakistan's and the India's Punjab province, when the Britishers were excavating the soil, we discussed that they found a large mounds of the bricks. But those dumb engineers of the British Empire could not able to think the source of those bricks, but they just utilized them. They utilized them irrationally, without any proper thinking about their origin. They utilized them. They carried off those mounds of the buildings, and unintentionally they actually destroyed the very most prehistoric sites of our culture. But later, around 1910 and 20s, if you see the archaeology, when the discipline of archaeology got matured, and the first director general of the Indian archaeology, modern Indian archaeology discipline. He was the Alexander Cunningham. So this was the person who actually recognized that no, these are not just mounds of the bricks, but this was the ancient prehistoric culture of India. There was a huge civilization. So those buildings of the bricks, which were made of the bricks, actually were a part of great civilization. So he was the first person to be, recognized the fact, and under his leadership, this excavation of different sites around this Harappa site started, and that led to the revolutionary discovery of a new civilization called Indus Valley civilization, called Harappan civilization. So we have discussed all these facts, that what were the incidents which led to the discovery of this Indus Valley sites. So this is what we have discussed, the general outline of Indus Valley civilization in the last class. So now we entered into the present class, that is the weekend 8th of the Mahabharat series and Indian history class number 7. As I have said, this class we are going to discuss the factual points about the Indus Valley civilization. Factual points, that means what exactly we found there. Why that period of 2600 BC to 1900 BC was considered as the most revolutionary, glorious period of India. Why? So let us see. Yes. So now let us discuss about the city Mohenjo-daro. Sir, please understand that this Mohenjo-daro is actually the largest city of all the cities of Harappan period. It was the largest site, but still we call this as Harappan civilization because it was not first to be discovered, but Harappa was. Yes or no? So this Mohenjo-daro actually, where did it locate? It was located just to the westwards of river Indus. So along the river Indus, this city got flourished, Mohenjo-daro city. Now let us study how the interior architecture was there, interior layout of the city, the architecture which was left over by the people of Mohenjo-daro, so that we came to understand that how all the cities of Harappan period were there. Now just imagine that now we are entering into the Mohenjo-daro city. Just imagine like that. I will narrate you everything what were there. I am like a guide. So we went to see Mohenjo-daro city. Just imagine like that. And every city, sir, please remember, this is very important note, every city of Harappan period will be like that and was like that. Similarly, that's why we grouped them under one umbrella term, Harappan civilization. So now let us imagine that now we are entering into the Mohenjo-daro city. The moment you enter into the city, you see that there was a clear division of the city. I mean, the entire city of Mohenjo-daro was divided into two different parts. One part was to the eastward side and another part was to the westward side. Just imagine that you enter into that, you will see some eastward large area, large city, and to the westward you will see a very small city. It was divided into two different sections. This is very important. And before we go into the details that why this division was there and what were there in different divisions, I want to tell you one point, that Harappan, the unique feature of this Harappan civilization period, 2600 BC to 1900 BC, the unique feature was that every city we found which was belonged to this period was a planned urban center. And the most important point to be noted here, that in our India, in our prehistoric India, this we normally call it as the first urbanization period. Every city was planned, not unplanned urban cities, sir. They were urban centers, but they were planned urban centers. Every city, Harappa city, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, Banavali, Rakigadi, Dholavira, Nageshwar, Rangpur, Amri, Balakot, Sutkagindo, Kod Diji. Every site of Harappan civilization, they were planned urban centers. How could we know that? How could we know whether they were planned or unplanned? Evidence. Science will always, the legs of the science will always never slips on the road, on the pavement of the evidence. Otherwise, it was not. Yes or no? The legs of the science will only walk on the pavement of evidence. If there was no pavement, the legs of the science will slip. This was a major saying normally, which I found nowhere but in my mind. So this is my statement I am saying. So don't take it to be authorized. How could we know that Mohenjo-daro was also planned city? So there were normally some signs to be there, some evidence to be there to say this argument. Let us see what were the signs which support the argument that Mohenjo-daro and in fact every city of Harappan period was a planned urban center. Let us see. Now I am going to tell you about the first sign. First sign that when you enter into the Mohenjo-daro city, I have said the city was divided into two different divisions. One westward portion of the city was very small in size, very smaller portion, but which was on the higher elevation. I have told you this in our last class. Smaller portion but higher elevation portion. So all the buildings which were there on this westward portion, they were on the higher elevation. The moment you go, you see the highest buildings on the leftward side. And if you see the large eastern portion of the city, they were on the lower elevation. That means, is this not a small sign to support the argument that this was planned actually? Yes. Plus, but don't conclude now itself. We have many evidences to conclude this statement. So now the archaeologists, historians named these two divisions specifically. They named the higher elevated portion, but the smaller portion, westward portion of the city of a Harappan period, and in fact now Mohenjo-daro city. That area of smaller but higher portion was called as citadel by the historians. It was just a name given, maybe for different reasons, I don't know, but they called it as citadel. Citadel. So what is citadel? Citadel is the westward portion, smaller portion, and the elevated portion of a city of Harappan period. In every city we found a citadel, and this lower but larger eastern portion was called as lower town by the historians, not by the Indus Valley civilization people. By our historians, we call them as citadel and lower town. Now we found these two divisions. That means, is this not a sign to you to tell a small analysis that there might be social differences existing in the cities? That might be the reason for this clear division of the city into two different parts. Social divisions that means some people, by then some social divisions might have come, that some people might have become important in the society and some were seen as unimportant. Maybe. Now, sir, if you see every city, not only Mohenjo-daro, every city, we found that every city was fortified. A huge wall of bricks which were constructed out of burnt bricks or mud bricks sometimes. A huge wall every city was fortified. Very, very specific to this Harappan period. Every city was fortified, almost, I am saying. That doesn't mean 100%, but almost every city. And not only that, in most of the cities, not only in Mohenjo-daro, you can see that this citadel portion and the lower town were also fortified inside. That means you will have a large boundary to the city, boundary wall, and inside the city also two different portions are fortified distinctively. That means there was a clear separation, there was a clear social inequality might be existing. We don't know. Now, sir, if you see now let us go into the lower town first, not to the upper town. Let us go into not to the citadel. Now let us study about the lower town, how it was there. What is lower town? It was the eastward portion and lower town, lower elevation town. Sir, if you see in this lower town, every house was actually constructed on a platform, on a raised platform, a little raised platform. That means, just imagine like this. You have, first of all, they have selected some area in that lower town. People have selected some area. On that, they have constructed a platform of mud bricks, a rectangle or square shaped platform. And on that rectangle or square shaped platform, they constructed the superstructure, that is the house. That means they were knowing the technique of foundation, laying the foundations to the house. Sir, it's a constructional revolutionary technique. Because to transfer the forces, if you are a civil engineer, you can understand, to transfer the load of the house, the forces which are coming from the house to the inside of the soil, you should have a clear path for the forces to go into, to be transferred into the soil. And that middle intermediary structures which transfers the load of the house, complete weight of the house and inside material of the house into the deep soil, because the structure has to be stable, so the load has to be transferred into the soil. And that intermediary structure we call them as foundation. This is a modern civil engineering construction technique actually to say, but it was there during the period of Indus Valley itself. So we are actually being fooled by saying that this was a modern technique. No, these foundations were laid to every house in every city of Harappan period, sir. Foundations, not if you are a civil engineer, you can know there are different types of foundations. Pile foundations, pile foundation, because a small structures but deep structures will be there. They will go deep to the soil and they will transfer the loads. But there are another type of foundation. For smaller structures, normally we use them. They are plate foundation. Plate foundation, that means throughout the area of house, if the house is 10 square meters, on the ground we make a mud platform of 10 square meters, a foundation completely of 10 square meters. We call this like a plate we put on below the house, so that house will transfer the load to the plate and plate will transfer the load to the soil. We call this as plate foundation. And Indus Valley people every house of the Indus Valley people, it was actually made up of a plate, supported by a plate foundation, sir. This is the reason we always take, our civil engineers of India take pride in looking back to Indus Valley people, because they know construction technology also. Now, so this is how one feature is mud raised platforms called as foundations, and on the foundations houses were built. And if you see, most of the lower town houses, completely lower town was actually of residential buildings, maybe for common people. But if you see the citadel, they were not residential in nature. They were not looking like a common structures. They were special structures. They were special. On the citadel portion, higher elevated portion, let us study about them later. But now let's see the lower town. Now let's see the architecture. Now we entered into lower town. Let us see how the drainage system was normally laid in the lower town. Let us see. Sir, if you see from top, if you see the lower town from top, all the streets and the drainage system, if you see, they were laid in almost grid pattern. Grid pattern, sir. You can see grids. Do you know grids? Square and rectangular portions. So first streets were laid, and in rectangle to them, in perpendicular to them, another street were laid. Cross roads, cross streets, etc. And in the remaining portions, houses were constructed along the streets and along the roads. So this grid pattern of drainage and street system was there, sir. Is this not a sign to say that the city was planned? If it was not planned, how can you expect every house to be along a street and every street were crossing each other like a grid? How can you expect that if they are random cities? No, they were planned. And if you see, sir, if in every house you have a bathroom. We have seen in every house there is a special bathing room to every house. Even till today we were struggling as a country to make our country open defecation free. We have Swachh Bharat, etc. Lot many big campaignings, but the Indus Valley civilization, almost 90% plus people, plus houses were having special bathing rooms. So not only that, in every house you see a well. In the Mohenjo-daro, we specifically have seen around 700 wells. Only in Mohenjo-daro, we have around 700 wells found. You can imagine how systematically people were living they might be. In every house, well was there. And not only that, from the bathrooms of every house, we could found that you can go to Mohenjo-daro. Now it is in Sindh province of Pakistan under Archaeological Survey of India control. Archaeological Survey of Pakistan control. You can go to there. You can go and visit everything what I am saying. From every house, you have a drain, a small drain, which takes out the wastewater from bathing room, and this small drain is being attached to the street drain. That's why I said every street was laid as a grid pattern and every house was along the street. Every house. And from every bathing room of every house, there were small drains and connected to the large drains. This is how the drainage system works. So a very well planned drainage system. Most of the world historians have said that this drainage system of prehistoric Indus Valley civilization of India was the ancient drainage, well planned drainage system in the world, along with Egyptian and Mesopotamian. They were contemporary civilizations. Well planned, sir, well planned drainage system. Now let us see. If you see the houses, every house was multi-storied house. You can see 2 or more stories, multi-floors, multi-storied house. And to every story there was a connecting steps to reach the top, to reach the roof. They were having flights. How well planned cities they were. Now, most of the houses were made out of burnt bricks or mud bricks. Both, mud or burnt bricks. As I have said, now I am revealing you the signs of planning, right? How can we come to a conclusion that this is a planned city? I have said the first sign was division of the city into 2 different things. Second sign was fortified. Third sign was straight grid pattern. This is a sign of planning. Grid pattern streets and laying out of drains. And the fourth sign, now I am revealing that the bricks which were used to construct the houses, the bricks, sir, they were standardized bricks. They were not randomly made out of mud. They were standardized. And do you know the standard of the bricks which they used? The length and breadth of the brick is 4 times and 2 times to the height of the brick. That means 4:2:1. This was the standardized ratio of the bricks which we found during the Harappan period buildings. Standardized bricks, sir. How beautifully they advanced construction technology. Civil engineers, you have to take pride, sir. You have to feel very proud to be belonging to this country, India, where this beautiful, glorious, Indus Valley construction civilization has evolved. Standardized bricks, sir. Most of the bricks were either sun-dried bricks or 90% of the bricks were baked bricks. Now, this is 4th sign. We can say with these 4 signs, it is a planned city. Even if you have not convinced, I will tell more evidences to say that they were planned urban centers. Now, sir, imagine if you go to the citadel portion. Now let us come to the citadel portion. Normally, we archaeologists and the historians will say this citadel portion might be actually for special purposes. The constructions, the buildings which were there, the structures which were there on the higher portion of the city, they might be for special purposes. Why? Why special purposes? Let us see why special purposes. What were the evidence in support of that argument? Sir, if you see on the citadel portion of every city, not only in Mohenjo-daro, we found a very large granaries like structures. That means agriculture might be flourishing in the Harappan period. That is the reason normally we construct granaries for the storage of grains, surplus grains. To trade with other civilization people, we will normally put large grains. So there were large grains we found in Mohenjo-daro, we found in Harappa, we found in Kalibangan, we found in Dholavira, we found large grains, a large room like structure, granary we call it as. That was present on the higher portion of the city. That means maybe this higher portion was well protected, well controlled by the security. Yes or no? A special structure. Now, if you see on every citadel, and almost in every city, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, in every city, on this citadel portion, on this higher elevated westward portion of the city, we found a special structure called fire altars. Do you know what is meant by fire altar? Fire altar is actually normally yagna or homa, where sacrifices were made to the most sacred belief system. That was, sir, please imagine there was no religion even till that date. There was no religion, etc. Indus Valley people doesn't have any religion. It was the most primitive form of belief, we call them as sacred beliefs. Just they will give sacrifices to, maybe the nature, etc. There are no gods, there are no religion, kuch nahi hai. So fire altars, we found fire altars. Special sacrifices might be happened, in praying the nature to give bounty of surplus of grain and agriculture, etc., trade, etc. So one is granaries on the citadel, another structures were fire altars. Sir, if you see in Mohenjo-daro and almost every city, that on a courtyard, on the citadel portion, if you see in the courtyard area, we found a great bath. What is this great bath? Already I have been mentioning it since the starting of this Indus Valley class. I have been mentioning that great bath. What is this great bath structure? Sir, it was an artificial tank. And if you see the great bath structure, this artificial tank was rectangular in nature. And towards the north and towards the south of this rectangular tank, there were leading steps into the tank. We have flight. We have staircase. Staircase means to go up, and here we have flight to come down into the tank. We have steps to the both sides, north and southern side of the tank. And you will wonder if I say that this great bath was actually lined with the bricks. Sir, it was completely lined with the bricks, and the space which was in between the bricks was filled by the mud and clay, baked clay. So not only that, you will surprise if I say that this great tank was completely made watertight in the Mohenjo-daro, especially, but in almost every city we found that great bath. In most of the cities, but especially Mohenjo-daro, we found great bath, and this artificial tank was completely paved by mortar. Do you know which material they used for paving? To make watertight, they used gypsum. Sir, even till today we were struggling to make the swimming pools and all other structures watertight. Even till today, sir, much advanced society we are in. But the Indus Valley people who are belonging to 2600 BC to 1900 BC, they were knowing the technique of making the artificial tank watertight by using the material mortar, that is gypsum and natural tar. They were using natural tar. It was completely watertight. And if you see just around the great bath, around this artificial tank, we were having different, around almost 8 bathing rooms, 4 to the north and 4 to the southern side. We have 8 different bathing rooms just aside of this great bath. And not only that, in one of the rooms of these 8, in one of the rooms we were having a very huge, large well. Why? Maybe this tank was actually filled with water by the water of that well. There was no river, etc. It was completely highly elevated portion of the city. Artificial tank. So how the water will come? Maybe through that well they were filling this on special occasions only. Is this not a sign to say that these were our special structures for special purposes? And you don't believe that. And almost, in the lower town, if you see, now let's come back to the lower town. Inside how the domestic architecture was there. Let's see. As I have said, multi-story buildings, every bathrooms in every house, drains, connection system. Sir, in every house we found pit houses. Pit grounds we have. What we call them as sinking pits. How conscious they were about hygiene and everything, sir. In every home we found pits, sink pits. That means every solid waste and other waste, they were actually being dumped into the sink pit, so that they will decompose naturally and become manure, etc. And the liquid waste only released into the street drains. Not everything, only the liquid waste was released, and the solid waste and all other cooking waste, etc. They were sink into the pit, and they be turned into manures. Sinking pits we found, sir. How great the technology was. And if you see the house structure, sir, in every house you will see in the central portion there is a courtyard. In the last class itself I have explained it, but still I am repeating because these are very important for examinations. That's why I have been focusing much on this portion of Indus Valley Indus Valley civilization. Around 2 to 3 classes I am taking. Very important portion, sir. In the center we have a courtyard, open courtyard in every house, and all this courtyard was surrounding by different rooms. And the point which I have to raise here is not this. The more important point is that, sir, these Indus Valley people are very conscious about their privacy. How could we know that? Yes, again we will go into the scientific way of reasoning. Sir, if you see the house construction, naturally, as I have said, the middle of the house is actually a courtyard where open activities like cooking, like weaving, etc. will happen. Sir, the opening of the house, if you see, normally what we expect, the opening of the house should actually open directly a view into the courtyard. Normally we expect like that. But it was not so. The main door of the house was opening to the corner of a house, not to the center. That means they were thinking that their open activities were not to be seen by everyone who were passing by on the surrounding roads. They were very conscious about their privacy. And not only that, there was a still concrete, more reason-based argument that if you see multi-storied buildings, as I have said, in every city we found them in the lower towns. If they have multi-storied buildings, normally on the second floor and third floor we found windows to the walls. But on the ground floor we found no window. There was not even a single window we found on the ground floor. That means they were consciously not putting the windows, yes or no, on the ground floor. That means they wanted themselves to be private, not to be seen by the people who are going by. In second and third floor they have windows. That means nobody can see the second floor directly. Open view will not be there. But on the ground floor it will be visible to see from outside. So they have not kept any windows on the ground floor. That means they were very conscious of their privacy. How much advanced technology it was, sir. Please understand. Not for examinations, sir. Not for examinations, not for jobs, etc. This is to know and to understand our Mahabharat. This is the foundation that we have. This is the foundational culture of us. Now, not only this, if you see, as I have said, fortified walls, separation of city, lower town, normal residential buildings, etc. This was not in every city. I mean, there were some little variations exist. For example, in Dholavira, if you see, in one of the Harappan city, we could not find. We could not find only, outer boundary wall. Inside the city also, we found different boundary walls to every city. Lower city and citadel. And to some cities, there was only one wall, outer wall. There were no individual separating walls. It means there were some variations, but on the broader view, if you see, every city was almost on the same plan, same layout. So if you see the standardization of the bricks, houses, multi-story buildings, privacy concern, hygiene concern, so all these, are these not giving you enough curiosity to claim that this period was actually well-planned urban-centered period? Yes or no? Well-planned urban-centered. This is the most unique feature of our Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. Now let us see, as I have said already, there were social differences existing, they might be. Because there were divisions, clear distinctions, clear divisions. So social differences must exist by seeing them. Because if you see on the citadel, special great bath was, that means there were some special people who were taking ritual baths, maybe special ritual baths on special occasions. Only special people. And if that city has to be planned, there should be someone who should be planning all these things. So maybe he might be an important person in the society. That means there were social differences existing, social inequality existing. But just architectural evidence is not enough to say social differences were existing, right? So we should have some other evidence also to say that social inequalities were there. What were those special evidences? Let us see. The first evidence, if you see, burials. As I have said before, Copper Age itself, burials were there in the latter Neolithic period. The practice of burying, because people believed in life after death, so they just not left the bodies to air like that. They very respectfully, buried under the soil, because they thought that there is a life after the death. And it was in that process itself, when they were digging, they found metal, as I have said in the previous classes. Copper metal was found, discovered. And by this Indus Valley period, if you see, these burials actually became a symbol of showcasing the inequality of the people. For example, if an important person was died, his burial would be very large in size, and along with the body of the dead, there were lot many food grains kept, pots of food grain. There were lot many jadites. Do you know jadeite? What is jadeite? Jadeite means it's a special vessel which was mainly found in China. And in Telugu we call it as jadi, but actually it is a jadeite stone, jadeite material. So there are many dozens of jadites in which food grains were kept along with the dead body. Not only that, all the domestic animals like sheep, goat, as I have said, they were also kept buried along with the dead body. Because they think that, there was life after death, and in that afterlife, this all will become food to him. This is how they might be thinking. And not only that, there were many ornaments were there on the skeletons we could see when we excavate the burials. And in contrast to this, there were some other burials which were just kept with dead body, nothing else. There no food grains, no domesticated animals, nothing else. That means there was a huge difference in the burials itself. That means it tells the social status is different. Everyone were not equal. Yes or no? So burials became the first sign of, showcasing the inequality, social difference existing. And not only that, if you see, we have on the citadel very special structures, special buildings, and in the lower town we could not find those special buildings. That means this is also one of the sign to say there were social differences existing. And on the citadel portion, if you see, most of the material with which special constructions were made, they were not locally available everywhere. As I have said, great bath, this gypsum, this natural thor, these materials were not necessarily to be available in local areas. That means they have actually brought from somewhere farther places. Yes or no? So who should brought them? Who should have brought them? They might have brought by a group of people whom the ruler or an important person have sent on on what I can say, on exhibitions or on exile. Like a group of people will go to some faraway places under the authenticity of this rule, on the order of this ruler, and those group of traders will go to Mesopotamian area, or even around the Harappan areas. They go to the places where gold was abundant, where silver was abundant, where copper was abundant, where these marble was abundant. So they go to the foreign places, and they might have brought them from there in the mechanism of trade upon the order of these special people who were controlling the citadel portion. So this special material actually a sign of social differences. Burials, different type of structures, citadel and lower town, special structure, special material. This all says that there must be having the social differences existing. And not only that, if you see the world trade of these people, sir, our Harappan seals we found in Mesopotamian civilization, in the Iran, Iraq and that portion, we found in the Mesopotamian area also our Harappan seals. And the Egyptian civilization, these three are contemporary, as I have said. Egyptian area also, in the Egypt and all the Northeast Africa, we found where Egyptian civilization was flourished, we found the seals of Harappa. And those, the symbols of the Mesopotamian civilization and the authentic symbols of Egyptian people, those seals we found in our Harappan area. That means they might be having very good relationship, very good trade relationships with both Mesopotamian, between all these three civilizations, four civilizations: Chinese civilization, Indian civilization, Indus Valley civilization, Egyptian civilization and Mesopotamian civilization. These were the four contemporary civilizations. So there was a huge trade happening between all. In Mesopotamia we found our sculptures, Harappan sculptures, Harappan seals, lot many Harappan seals we found, lot many copper vessels we found which were very specific to us, Indus Valley people. So this tells that who should be doing, a common man? Do you think a common man of Indus Valley civilization was actually doing all this trade, international trade? Who should be doing that? Maybe important people in the society, not everyone. So this also says, international trade also says that there must be having some social differences existing. And if you see, in Mohenjo-daro we have found a bronze sculpture of a dancing girl. That means they were knowing dance, an art form of dance. A dancing girl, bronze sculpture we found. And not only that, sir, if you see, in the Mohenjo-daro itself, we found the terracotta toys of bull, terracotta toys of bullock carts. Bulls and bullock carts. So we could come to know that oxen might be they were using oxen in agricultural practices, maybe. And these we found only in special structures, these toys, terracotta toys of, dancing girl, bull and oxen, etc., plow, bullock cart, these terracotta toys, we found in special buildings only. That means this is another symbol to say that there were social differences existing. Only they might be having rich people, they might be rich people, important people in the society, maybe. There was no religion, but there were social differences existing. Now, around the cities, if you see, around these all urban cities, there were some rural areas also existing, and these rural areas were supplying the food material to the cities. How could we know that? We could know that because lot of city seals, Harappan ornaments, in the cities, crafts will be made. Normally, craftsman will exist, different scribes will exist because they have script. As I have said, script was there. They were writing, but we could not decipher that till now. That means there were scribes. There were different professions in the city. Craft people, for example, some people might be doing copper ornaments. Some people might be weaving the clothes because already cotton was started growing. So then some weavers might be there. There were some differences. Different professions might have come up by this period. They actually called as cities. A city means tertiary and secondary activities will be going on in the city, not primary activity. What is primary activity? Direct production of food from soil. That is a primary economic activity. They happen in the village communities. Secondary and tertiary, like processing of the food, like making, manufacturing of the goods. This will happen in the cities. So in all Harappan cities, we found these Harappan seals, crafts, ornaments, bullock cart, toys, terracotta toys, etc. And in the villages, we found a huge, agricultural production. So these two were in exchange to each other. They were trading. There were traders who act as a bridge between these village communities and cities. How could we know that? We could know that because whatever the manufactured goods which were manufactured, like ornaments, beads, as I have said, toys, etc. We found them in the village community settlements of around the cities. We found in small village settlements. One copper mirror we found on a village which was around the Mohenjo-daro city. Copper mirror. It is a city tool. It is a city people's utensil. Copper mirror. It was found in a village settlement where there were no buildings, etc. They were like village settlement just around the cities. That means there was a trade also happening between, not only internationally, but there were trade happening between rural and city regions also of this Harappan period. And if you see the religion part of this, religion, is there a religion at all, or etc. We could not, our historians and architecture archaeologists could not able to decipher clearly whether there was a religion or not. But a very important fact to be noted here, that we found a prototype of Shiva. Today we have the posture of Shiva, like he was having a snake in the neck. He was having the hide of a maybe tiger, he wore as a dress, and he was having the animals around him. He was in meditative posture. So this is how we see the modern Lord Shiva. We found a seal in the Harappan period, in the Harappan cities, which shows it was almost like the posture of Shiva, but it was not exactly as Lord Shiva posture, but it was a primitive form of Lord Shiva. Like that seal, the archaeologists and historians call it as Pashupati. It was a prototype of Pashupati. Pashupati means around him there were lot many elephant was there, lot many animals were there around him. On the seal, this is what we were able to reconstruct. How this is how we reconstruct. So a prototype of Pashupati was found in the Harappan period. That means maybe that was like a very, very first step towards a religion. Maybe we cannot call it as a religion, but a very first step towards revering a person, revering a human object, like prototype of Pashupati. We found that. And not only that, we found a sculpture of, like goddess, mother goddess. We call in the modern times we have Lord Parvati, etc. But in the Harappan period, if you see, we found a sculpture of a mother goddess like sculpture, a mother goddess like sculpture. So these were the two things which were in connection with a primitive type of religion, to say. So prototype of Lord Pashupati we found, and another one was we found mother goddess sculpture. And not only that, if you see in the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, we found a sculpture of a priest, head priest we found. For example, that head priest was actually wearing a he was wearing a cloth which was embroidered cloth, a very special cloth. On that we will having some flower like symbols, embroidered cloth, embroidering, that means he might be the head priest of the people. We don't know. He was having beard, a very clear beard was sculptured. You can see them, a beard man of Indus Valley civilization. You can just Google it. You will come to know that. So these we found a stone sculpture of a beard man. He was considered by historians as a head priest. So this was not considered as a religion, but a very first step, initial step towards a religion, we can say. And not only that, sir, if you see, this is how the Indus Valley civilization was flourished. Like from 3000 BC to 2600 BC, it was early Harappan civilization. So there were no buildings, large buildings. There were no trade, etc. I'm very sorry. But if you see from 2600 BC to 1900 BC, there were buildings, large buildings, and all this glorious period which I have explained, glorious first time activities started. And this is what happened between 2600 and 1900 BC. A very huge, rich urbanization process. Lot many cities have come up. The coastal cities, if you see in the Dholavira and in the Lothal cities, we found lot many ports. There were ports. That means the trade was happening internationally, maybe through the ships or etc. We don't know. Ships means the ancient form of prehistoric form of ships, I am saying. And in the Kalibangan, we have found the factory sites. Factory sites, for example, bangles. Mud bangles were made, sir. Mud bangles were made in the Kalibangan. There was a factory site, we found mud bangles, baked clay bangles. And not only that, if you see, this rich, mature Harappan civilization, after 1900 BCE, we could not find this much of glorious structures. So now we completed the mature Harappan period, and now we are entering into the latter Harappan period. That is from 1900 BCE to 1500 BCE. You understood it right? The division 3000 to 1500. This is the period we are discussing. Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization. In that, three periods, subdivisions. 3000 to 2600 early Harappan period, it was like a smaller settlements I have explained. 2600 to 1900 BC, it was mature Harappan period, which we actually glorious period, which we say as. And after that, 1900 to 1500, now I am going to explain what happened, why this glorious period was actually disappeared suddenly. So these larger buildings, these larger structures, grid patterns, streets and drains, multi-storied buildings, special structures like citadel, on that great bath, fire altars, all this setup, these huge, rich urbanization structures, they were disappeared after that. I mean, this is how the layer by layer excavations tell us. So archaeologists could find that there were no large buildings after 1900 BC. There were no such larger buildings or larger settlements. We could not find. We don't know the reasons why this actually happened, why this glorious, rich urbanized civilization suddenly collapsed or suddenly, disappeared. We don't know. Historians have given lot many theories for the decline of this Harappan civilization, but there were no concrete evidence to say them as true. So from 1900 BC to 1500 BC, if you see, completely all these cities were disappeared. People, completely left these cities. That means there were no signs of any building construction. There were no signs of large settlements, etc. Completely, people abandoned these cities. We don't know why. There were 2 to 3 different theories, which I will tell now. But we don't know the exact theory which explains the decline of this civilization. So the first theory which explains the decline of this civilization was, actually it was the flood, maybe natural calamities like huge floods. Maybe the river Indus might have, because of these dam constructions by these people, etc. Maybe the complete cities were flooded, and people, have abandoned the city settlements, and they might have gone farther away and settled again. So this is the one theory. If you see even the movie which came on this period, that is Mohenjo-daro movie, Bollywood movie, you can see. Please do watch it. Not you can, but you have to. So this movie actually took up this theory of decline of Harappan as flooding. So maybe because of the flooding of this Indus river, these cities got disappeared suddenly. But this theory was not accepted universally, sir, among scientific community. Why? Because Mohenjo-daro is the only city which was very nearer to the Indus river. But there were many cities which were very far away from rivers. But even they have collapsed. They also have disappeared. So this flooding theory was not actually accepted with everyone. And some people have said that, some historians have said that maybe the drying up of rivers. For example, the river Saraswati, which I have said, we call it as Saraswati Sindhu civilization because of the enclosing borders of 2 rivers, Saraswati and Sindhu river. So that Saraswati river was actually changed its course and it was disappeared, suddenly dried up. This is what some historians put up their theories for the decline of this civilization. And another theory put forward was the river Indus itself, rather than flooding, it actually changed its course. This is what some historians say. Because the river changed its course, the cities could not flourish and they have disappeared. These were, some incontroversial theories, but there was a very controversial theory which almost, unbelievable to most of the Indian historians, Indian scientific community, but it was put forward by world community, including some Indian scientists also, historians also. That theory was Aryan invasion theory. Aryan invasion. So please listen, this is very important part. We came to the end of the lecture. Aryan invasion theory says, this set of community says that, scientific community says that, actually the group of people from Central Asia, there are some group of people, a separate tribe from Central Asia who are actually called as Aryans. So these Aryans have actually by 1500, they have come and invaded the northernmost area. That is the then Harappan civilization cities. So this scientific community says that Aryans were invaded these Harappan cities and Aryans started ruling. That's why they actually, destroyed the complete cities. This is what the theory they put forth. Aryans invasion theory. What was the evidence that they, come to the conclusion of that? The evidence, they said that, sir, in the Mohenjo-daro city, when we were excavating, we could found that on the upper layers, that means in the latter period of, in the latter Harappan period, which I am speaking about, this decline. On that layers we found in the Mohenjo-daro city, there were huge mounds of, soil we found on the streets of the Mohenjo-daro, huge mounds of soil. And not only that, very surprisingly, the archaeologists found some large some large mounds of the skeletons we found on the streets of the Mohenjo-daro. Skeletons, human skeletons. So this evidence, this huge mounds of the skeletons, this evidence, made the scientists, made the historians to believe that there might be a war, there might be a conflict between these Aryans who invaded these Harappan cities and the local Harappan people. There was a war, and because these Aryans were very advanced in their warfare, why? They floated that because by 1000 BC, by 1000 and just before that, we call that as the era of iron age. It starts from 1000 BC. But in different parts of the world, it started a little before also, discovery of metal iron. So Aryans were very familiar with the iron. Before that, we could not find iron in our, all the Indus Valley civilization, and before that. Only from this, after this, after Indus Valley civilization, we could find the traces of iron. So the scientific community says that because Aryans, who were of actually belonging to Central Asia, who came to invade this Harappan area, Harappan cities, they were with horses and they were with iron swords. So their tools were very advanced, and this Harappan people could not able to, could not able to defend themselves strongly because their metals, their warfare was very lower to Aryans. So they have killed, they have massacred the people of Harappan cities, and they destroyed the cities. This is what they say, because of, with the evidence of this mounds of skeletons we found on the streets of the Mohenjo-daro. And another reason which this Aryan invasion theory proposers says was, after this period we see sudden the rise of Vedic period, Vedic culture. Sudden shift will be there. After this post Harappan period, we found this Aryan, this Vedic period. A different form of religion will come up, etc. We will discuss in the next lecture. I'm sorry. So in that Vedic period, we see in the early period, the first lord to be projected much was Lord Indra. Lord Indra. Why I am saying this? So this scientific community who supported this Aryan invasion theory says, because Aryan's god was Indra, they don't like the cities, fortified cities. So this god Indra was actually a symbol of war. He was a symbol of war. So they were very furified, they were very fiercely, destroyed the cities, fortified cities of all these cities, because they don't like it. Their god was Lord Indra, so they believed in Lord Indra, who was a war god, war lord. So they destroyed all the cities in belief of that. Because of the evidence of Lord Indra's projection in the latter times, they believe so. So maybe the Aryans have come up and they have destroyed all the cities. We don't know what exactly happened. Maybe flooding happened, maybe drying up of rivers happened, maybe even Aryans invasion might have also happened. We don't know exact reason, but these were different theories. But the conclusion was that this glorious period of Indian prehistory, Indus Valley civilization, Harappan civilization, has declined between 1900 BC and 1500 BC. And from 1500 BC, we will see the early Vedic period. We will see a different culture, which is altogether changed from this Harappan culture. Different culture we found, archaeologists have found, historians have found. And the first script of Indus Valley people we could not decipher till now. But after that, another script, sudden different script came. A different altogether script has come up, and that has been deciphered. So from there we have literary sources, literary human recorded sources also for study of the prehistory. But before that, before 1500 BC, almost completely this civilization got disappeared. Indus Valley civilization, all cities have disappeared almost. People have abandoned the settlements and they went far away. We don't know. Maybe because of flooding, maybe because of drying up of rivers, maybe because of Aryans invasion. But now the story of India. Sir, listen, this is the most goosebumps moment in history, that now the story of India shifts its viewpoint from the area of northwestern India, Indian subcontinent, to eastwards. Now the story goes to the eastern side. From the river Indus in the northwestern side in the Indus Valley civilization period, to the story now shifts towards eastern side. Now another river which gives birth to a second urbanization, a second glorious period now starts. And that river I will reveal in the next class. And now the Indian story will shift a little eastwards, and it is centered around in the eastern side of the India, northern side of the India, northern side and eastern side of the India. The story is shifted. So this is half by 1500. Indus Valley civilization got completely disappeared and a new culture has come up, and let us discuss that new culture, that is early Vedic period we call it as, from 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE, and from 1000 BCE to 600 BCE we call it as latter Vedic period. Latter Vedic period. So from 600 BCE, by 600 BCE, this prehistory of India will get over. We call till 600 BCE it was prehistory, and from 600 BCE we start with history of the India. So now we are on the latter portion of prehistory. So in the next class we will discuss about the early Vedic period, and after that the story continues. So I want to tell you two things. One is that I will attach the class notes in the description box and also in the comments box. Please go through that, because Indus Valley civilization is the most important part to be understood, and because we are Indians first of all, and because it is a part of every examination, second reason. And the second point I want to tell you all that, please do comment, please do inform me that if I have to change my way of explanation or some things, or even if you love this explanation, please do express your opinion so that I will be more strengthened. Even if you dislike the explanation, please do express it in comments so that I will change my way of explanation, because without a two-way communication, understanding is impossible. It just becomes an information, bombarding of information. I don't want it to be. So please do that. Express your opinion. Express your just suggest to me, because it is a huge journey, right? Long journey that we are going to do for a long. So I have to change. I have to increase the efficiency, because already I am putting the efforts. So why can't we to be efficient? So please do help in that. And this is what the Indus Valley civilization is. And from next class we will study Vedic culture. And thank you.
This is your Esaki. Thank you.
अथ श्री महाभारत कथा।